Neighbor tells Gramps he should mind his own damn business. That advice costs neighbor most of his yard and a car. Gramps had just moved into a retirement park, and his lot backed up to county land that was a nature preserve. His backyard was practically non-existent, but he didn't mind. He loved looking out over the preserve. However, he couldn't help but notice that his neighbor's backyard extended a good 8 feet past his, giving the neighbor a nice space. Gramps tried to be friendly with everyone, exchanging phone numbers. One day, he noticed the neighbor laying down expensive pavers that stretched from his back door all the way to the old fence posts marking the preserve boundary. Gramps watched as the neighbor yanked out 3 rickety fence posts and moved them back 2 feet into the preserve before pounding them back in. Then he started clearing the land, clearly trying to gain more space for his pavers. Having worked for the National Park Service in his younger days, Gramps felt compelled to warn his neighbor about the consequences of his actions. So he stepped outside for a little chat. But the neighbor was immediately defensive. Before Gramps could say much, the neighbor snapped, "You're new here. I've been here 10 years. Mind your own business." Gramps decided not to press the issue. Nothing happened that year. But the following summer, when most of the park emptied out, the county came by to check on the preserve. Gramps noticed them going back and forth behind the neighbor's house, pulling out maps, taking photos, and making phone calls. Soon, more workers showed up. It turned out the neighbor had moved the posts several times over the years, and his backyard was supposed to be even smaller than Gramps's. To make matters worse, the neighbor had installed pavers specifically to park both his golf cart and a cherry red sports car in the back for the summer. The county would have to move them before they could do anything else. They taped a notice to the front door and left. Curious, Gramps went over to read it. The notice stated that the neighbor was in violation of encroaching onto protected lands. He had 30 days to move his car, tear up the pavers, and pay a fine of $11,000 due to damage to endangered species and trespassing fees. If he failed to comply, both the golf cart and car would be towed, the pavers removed at his expense, and the fine would increase for every day past the deadline. 30 days came and went. A week later, Gramps had quite the show, as first the car and cart were towed. Then, the pavers were dug up and hauled off. The old fence posts were replaced with metal posts embedded in cement bases, connected by steel cables. The whole process took several weeks, but the preserve looked much more legitimate when they were done. A few solar cameras were installed to monitor the wildlife and any encroachers. By November, the snowbirds began returning to the park, including the neighbor. Gramps witnessed the neighbor's second show of the summer as he read all the notices. The neighbor dug down until he reached the first one, then ran out back, screaming in frustration. He rushed to his car to dig out his cell phone and call the county for answers. Gramps stayed indoors to avoid the chaos. The neighbor was frantically unloading his car, turning on his water and electricity, and trying to get someone at the county to pick up the phone. When he finally reached a live person, he started yelling about his car and golf cart, causing the call to be transferred repeatedly. Eventually, the neighbor was told to come to the county office to sort things out. 3 days later, the neighbor caught Gramps outside and asked if he had been there when the county stole his car and destroyed his backyard. Gramps replied that he had been. The neighbor then asked, "Why didn't you call me when you saw them putting notices on my door? You had my number up north." Gramps smiled and said he had thought about it, but figured the neighbor would prefer him to mind his own business, so he decided against it.